Hey, everybody. Today we have for you podcast number 93. Today's podcast is titled, Who Wants to Make a Positive Impact? Hey, everybody. Welcome to this week's edition of your weekly Limitless Life Network podcast. We are Dr. Pete and Sandy Lombardi, and this is the Limitless Life Network, where we flesh out the limitations that are preventing you from reaching your goals and living the life that you are called to lead. So, Sandy, what do you got to say today? Not much.
Well, we're very thankful for all of you who've reached out this week. There's been more than usual, and it's very humbling. So thank you for encouraging us of how the podcast is impacting you. A woman last night said it really calmed her with a stressful situation that they had occur, an accident. And so it just really blesses us to hear from you how it's helping you. So thanks.
Yeah, for sure. I gotta say that, Sandy was feeling a little discouraged at times, but this week was like that week that I guess we needed. We had so many people that just reached out to us, and we're grateful for the podcast last week. So if you haven't listened to last week's podcast, I guess go back and listen to it. But today we have a totally new one for you, as usual. And I'd like you to share this. I mean, that we talk about like, follow, share, but really, I mean, I'd like to get a bigger reach. I don't know how to really do it other than asking you to share, but I would love to be able to reach more people. I mean, it's been kind of just staying where it is. I haven't really seen a lot of growth lately, but not sure what I got to do, but we'll keep plugging away. So anyway, thank you so much. And let's get on with the show, as we say. All right, so today's title is a question: who wants to make a positive impact? Hopefully your answer is, I do. Yeah, we hope everybody does want to make a positive impact. So Sandy actually got the ball rolling with today's podcast, so I'll let her start it out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we had a great weekend with family in town. My parents and Timothy and his girlfriend came in from Elam College, and Nate and Sam were here with the baby, and we just had a lot of great family time. And on Sunday, our son Tim and his girlfriend Elena helped lead worship at a small church in Sylvan Beach, where a good friend of ours' son, Austin Williams, was preaching. And so he just got his master's in theology from Liberty, and he's back here and going to be, I'm not sure what he's going to do. He's not sure yet, but so it was a powerful time, I guess, to see the two of them. Timothy will be 20 in a few weeks, and Austin probably 22, 23. So these two young men serving, and just, it was really awesome to watch. So the first point is the ripple effect. Austin's mom made a post about the ripple effect that she recognized seeing our boys up there together leading a church service. And she reminded me that they met us because we hosted this small group out of our home that our pastor at the time, Stephen James, had suggested. It was, what was it? Purpose-Driven Community. It was by Rick Warren. And that was, probably 18 years ago.
Easily.
That they asked us to lead that out of our house. And I thought back, like, there was probably so many reasons not to. We had, at that point, 3 little boys. And but anyway, never done anything like that. But we said yes and invited this family that we didn't really know, Becky, Bob Williams, and they joined us, and our kids became friends, and we became lifelong friends. And those 2 boys that met when they were like age 2 and 3 are now, leading a church service. So the ripple effect of just saying yes to something that you might not feel qualified for, want to do, it was powerful. And I think we can all think of ripple effect, like think back of something and what did it start with?
Right. Yeah, I think I think you hit the nail on the head, and you described that very, very well. Is that you never know, what what seems like a little thing, how it's going to manifest in time, and how God can work those things to such greater
Hmm.
positive things. So,
Well, I didn't give the example of Austin with his ripple effect example. If you
oh
want to
yeah,
share
yeah.
that, that's where it
Well,
came from, really.
actually, yeah, yeah. Why don't you share that?
Well, in his sermon, Austin gave a historical account of the Sunday school teacher who, spoke into the life of one of his students, and then the student went on to influence someone else, and it was moody, and it then eventually worked the influence to, oh my
Billy
goodness,
Graham.
Billy Graham.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like that's where the ripple effect
Yeah.
thought came
So there
from.
literally was a big lineage that you could trace back over, a long period
Probably
of time.
100 years,
Yeah,
or yeah.
and it reached this one young man, and obviously he reached millions of people, and that's just the very thing with the ripple effect. You just don't know how and what seems like a simple, insignificant action, what it's going to lead to. You
Hmm.
never know. And the older that you get, that you start to see these things come to fruition. In other words, you see the fruit of your labor start to happen, but you have to take action in order for it
Hmm.
to happen.
Yeah.
So it all starts with action. Yeah.
Right. Right.
So that brings us to point number 2, and why don't you lead us into this one? It's called you titled it "It Takes a Village."
Okay. Um, it had been on my heart, this "It Takes a Village" with something we're working on in our co-op, our homeschool group. And I saw someone else post about it recently online about "It Takes a Village." And it was actually Meg Congdon and in the Canastota community. And the impact that they have had, her and her husband. She's been battling cancer. He's a well-respected coach in the Canastota community. And they're just so highly thought of for their perseverance, pouring quality character into the young people in the Canastota community. And in my terms of my co-op, it's families coming together with a common goal of raising children with excellence in so many areas of their life. It goes way beyond just our educational goals, and how do we like have those difficult conversations with each other, that maybe one of our children has done something that is less than desirable, and have this conversation, a healthy conversation about a really difficult topic. And I was thinking, like, it takes a village, and if we really see the group as a village, like, we value you and we need your input to raise our child to be this ideal, this child that we're shooting for. And I think if we come around it with this camaraderie, it wouldn't have the same like defeating or battle like content to it.
Yeah. It comes down to a couple of things. And the more you start talking about it, I keep having ideas pop into my head, and one of them is responsibility. Like when people start to take ownership of things and don't just see it as someone else's problem, like, and you take responsibility. And I think of a village, that's responsible for everything. Like, everybody should be responsible for the beauty of the village,
Mm-hmm.
the health of the village, the functionality of it. Everything should be, everyone is responsible. Like, it's not just one person's responsibility, but it's everybody's responsibility. If you see something that's out of place and out of line, then it needs to be corrected, right? It
Right.
needs to be righted. So when we see things wrong, that we need to step in and take responsibility. And that, unfortunately, is something that people struggle to do, because they're looking at, well, gee, that's not my job, that's not my position, that's not my responsibility. We're very quick to not want to take ownership or responsibility for things. But in effective businesses and effective organizations, it's when people take responsibility because they feel like they have some ownership there.
Mm-hmm.
And
Well, a
when it
sense
comes,
of like
yeah,
pride in a
yeah,
way,
it
like
is.
that. Yeah.
If you really buy into what you want for an outcome, if you really want things to be better, well, then why wouldn't you take responsibility? It doesn't make sense not to take responsibility. And then the next question is, like, what if you have made mistakes. Maybe you are part of the problem, right? And are you open, if you're really part of the vision, if you really want this thing to go well, are you open for criticism?
Mm.
Because that's a tough pill to swallow for a lot of people. And it's a humbling experience. And I know yesterday I had a couple of lower points that I had to take responsibility for yesterday. Ultimately, it fell back on my shoulders. And I'm like, yeah, all right, I dropped the ball. That was me that has to take responsibility for it. And how can I fix it going forward? I'm open to a lesson. I'm open to learning. Like, what do I got to do? Because I don't want this to happen again, right? Like, I want to eliminate this. And it's really impossible to eliminate all problems. But at the same time, if you buy into the vision, if you really want things to go right, you've got to take responsibility. You've got to be open to criticism. And ultimately, you got to be willing to have difficult conversations. And you mentioned that briefly. And this is another area people really struggle with. They tend to avoid. It's having the difficult conversation. Why do people shirk difficult conversations? Because they're a lot of times you're not great at communicating with people. You're more worried about being liked sometimes and how people will perceive you. And it makes you anxious and it makes you feel uncomfortable. So we shy away from that because we haven't experienced it enough, right? So I know that when I was in school running track and field, and our coaches used to talk to us about how before a race you get super nervous. And I would literally want to withdraw from the race because I'd be so nervous. And my coach would always be like, no, just get up there and start the race. Just get on the line, right? Get up there. The gun would go off and my nervousness would be over with. And that's having a difficult conversation. The first few sentences feel like your lips are numb when you're and you're not sure how it's going to go. But when you get into it, then you're in it and then you can work it out, right? So, but if you avoid those difficult conversations, if you avoid those challenging conversations, then nothing gets fixed. And as a matter of fact, it usually gets worse. So I encourage you, if this takes a village theme resonates with you, remember these different points. All right, there we go. That was point number 2.
Well, there's so much we could go there, but
All right, let's
I
go.
think whether it's an employee, employer, a workplace situation, it could be any group of people. If you can find common goals, common desire of success in a certain thing, then I think those tough conversations, you realize that you're both shooting towards this same end goal.
Yeah.
And that should enable us to see, like, if we're going to reach that, then we've got to have this tough conversation, but it can be beautiful. Like
Right.
it can propel both forward.
It's usually harder in your mind because you don't necessarily know what to say
Yeah.
than it is. And oftentimes when you get into it, you find out it wasn't that bad. And you just have to get your ego out of the way in some cases, and just do it. Yeah. So.
All right. We'll go on to point number 3.
Yeah. Why not? It's after 2.
Teach them to climb the mountain. So we're talking like conflict, challenges in life, like teaching our children, your grandchildren, how to face it, how to overcome, because there will constantly be these mountains or obstacles in their life, but you're not always going to be there to push them out of the way or helicopter it and figure it out for them. So how do we raise grandchildren, children to be able to navigate those things the rest of their life?
Yeah, it makes me think about just being turned loose as a young kid and just I didn't have a lot of oversight. My parents were older and they had 4 other kids at the time and they were kind of done parenting. So when I came along, it's not that I was neglected or anything, but I got a lot of free reign. So I got into a lot of trouble and I got to experience a lot of problems and I had to try to figure them out. And I didn't always do a great job, but it comes through experience and giving somebody a lot of responsibility. So we talked about taking responsibility, but sometimes you have to give responsibility too.
Right.
And I see a lot of younger generations, through protection and so forth. Parents thinking that, oh, it's best if I just protect this kid because, and then the kids don't know what to do because they don't give them any responsibilities. So they're bored all the time and they just marinate in front of a TV or a video game.
Yeah.
And that's not teaching anybody anything. You're just going to make life super easy for them because that's so false. That's not what life is. Life isn't super easy. There's all kinds of challenges coming your way. So you better learn how to handle them, and you better learn how to climb these mountains.
Right. And that obstacles should be expected, like not to be surprised. I think we see that, like, we're all surprised when things don't go easily. Well, that should be expected rather than a surprise.
Yeah, and think about you're really robbing kids today of the success of overcoming challenges.
Yeah.
Like you feel amazing when you figure stuff out. Like there's a sense of reward there, a brain reward cascade that takes place when you overcome something difficult.
Yeah.
If you're never getting those opportunities, because somebody's clearing your path to make everything smooth and easy for you, well, you're going to live a life that's pretty limited because that's not reality. And then you're going to be surprised one day that, wow, everything's not fair. Right. So that was number 3. Yeah. And that brings us to number 4, which is graduation. Let's talk about graduation. That's coming up for a lot of people.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we were taking it beyond just high school graduation or college graduation. We were thinking about different stages of life. Like you have a brother who just recently retired, and that there's these stages of life, and what does it look like as we head into those, and what are we planning, and what wisdom are we pulling in?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's like chapters in a book,
Yeah.
the pages keep turning, the chapters keep coming, and decisions need to be made. So you can live a life of not really making a lot of decisions, which becomes kind of an indecisive life. And as time continues on, those chapters are pretty boring and not a lot takes place. And, this whole idea is like, what kind of, positive impact are we making here? So, you have to look for direction. Like some people fail to make decisions, I think, a lot of times just because they're trying to be perfect. And so they become indecisive and then they don't make any real decisions. So they just kind of sweep it under the rug and don't really take advantage of the opportunity. But I say, look for direction. And where do you get your direction from? You can get it from the culture, which the culture has been training men and women today to go in a certain direction. And that direction is usually try to make as much money as you possibly can so you can retire at a certain age so that you can, go on vacations and live the life, right? Like that's the cultural dream, right? Like people say, "Oh, what are you doing?" I'm living the dream. Like, really? That's your dream. That's what your purpose is. That's what God put you on this earth to do. Okay. But I look for a different direction, and I look for a spirit-led life. And what does that look like? Well, it's really trying to discern what God wants for me. What does God want for me? And so how do you figure that out? Like, do you hear a voice one day? Well, it comes through having a relationship and spending time there, because it sounds crazy to just hear somebody say, "Oh, the Spirit led me." But yeah, the Spirit will lead you if you ever tune into it. And that means that you have to spend time having a relationship and having a conversation, having communication and sitting, praying, thinking, and giving that to God, and you will get direction. And it may not be the cultural direction that you're thinking, but it's going to come to you. But you won't tune into it unless you spend time investing in that. And I gotta say that God has got a purpose for you, and it's very clear that there is one. There's expectations, I should say.
Yeah.
And God expects a lot from us. He expects us to love Him first and foremost. That's really a big expectation. And another expectation after we're loving Him is to knowing His Word is to love our neighbors. It's really the second commandment there, right? So get involved with that, because I think that you're going to find that it clarifies a lot of things for you. It takes a lot of stress out of making decisions. It allows you to move forward in life in a comfortable, meaningful way. Yeah. Anything you want to add to that?
I'm stuck on comfortable. It won't be comfortable. It'll be stretching, right?
Well, I guess I find, to me, it gives me peace
You're
knowing
right.
that I don't have to.
That's the word. Peace.
Yeah, it's more peace and less stress and anxiety. Like
Yeah.
that's, I don't feel very anxious or stressed.
Yeah.
If I'm trying to live up to the standards of the culture,
Gotcha.
that brings stress and anxiety,
Gotcha. Yep.
right? But if I'm living up to God's standards, I have beautiful peace. I have perfect peace about things,
Yeah.
and I just feel really good about the decisions, and that makes me comfortable.
Yeah. Gotcha.
You know?
That makes sense. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So last point is leading into Father's Day. It's Father's Day weekend coming up. It's this coming Sunday, so you'll get this podcast prior to Father's Day. So, yeah, I just started a study called Kingdom Men Rising, I believe it's called, and it really talks about striving for something more. Greatness has, becoming a better man, right? And I think this applies to women too, but men, I think are really in a position today where they're not striving for greatness necessarily. There's some you're born to, you really are, that you're wired to have challenges and face them and overcome them. And I got to tell you, you may not feel like you want to have that, but you may not feel like you're cut out for it. And I got to tell you, it has very little to do with your skill set. It has more to do with your heart. And if you think about it, like in sports, you can have the most talented athlete out there, but if he never works at it, he's only going to go so far. But the guy or gal that works their tail off and just shows up day in and day out and puts in the work and gives it 100% every single day, they're going to find a spot on the roster, and they're probably going to be the one that really shines because they just have been putting in the work and nobody's expecting it from them. And that's typically what you see in life. Look at Tom Brady. He was the arguably one of the best quarterbacks of all time. And he was like not a high draft choice whatsoever. They were not touting him as this amazing quarterback out of college, but he just showed up every day and just put in the work. And that's my encouragement for you, is that, don't make excuses why you can't do things, and don't give into, don't give any power to like personal disadvantages. Because people that don't do that, like if you've probably got some strikes against you, whatever it is, but don't give power to that, because people that carry on regardless of the circumstances, those are the people that we look at as legends, in the future. And everybody has that potential to do that. So I encourage dads to be that way. And it's a really pretty simple equation to do that. You just have to be willing to show up in life every day and to be present in relationships and just put consistent effort forward. So those three things, being diligent and studying the word, investing in others, but basically these three things: show up, be present, and stay consistent. So that's my Father's Day gift to you, is just learn that mantra. Just keep showing up, keep being present with the people that are in your life, and just stay consistent. Just be Mr. Steady, and things will take care of themselves.
Yeah, the results will come.
Yeah.
Patient.
All right, folks, that's a wrap on this week's edition of your weekly Limitless Life Network podcast. Tune in each and every week to stay connected, be inspired, and keep moving toward your best life by stripping away your limitations. And we will see you back next week.
Have a great weekend.